So, moments from now, I'm going to give you a little memory. When I was a kid, we used to go out to my grandmother's house, and on the way back at night, and you're tired, and you're sitting in the back seat of the car, and you're listening to a radio drama, and it could be any of those dramas from years ago that we will be reenacting shortly. In fact, it's going to be quite the tribute because we have live music that will be included in our drama today. So we're just going to set up for a moment, and then, dun, 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 dun. That's all I got to say. Be right back.
All right, ready, cast? All right, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you're about to hear is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Dragnet, brought to you by Chesterfield.
You're a detective sergeant. You're assigned to forgery detail. For the past several months, a man posing as an actor has been passing worthless checks in your city. You've got a description of the suspect, but no lead to his whereabouts. Your job? Get him. Stop! Start smoking with a smile with Chesterfield. Smiling all the while with Chesterfield. Put a smile in your smoking with, give 'em a try. Light up a Chesterfield. They satisfy.
Put a smile in your smoking.
Next time you buy cigarettes, stop. Remember this. In the whole wide world, no cigarette satisfies like Chesterfield.
Dragnet, the documentary drama of an actual crime for the next 30 minutes in cooperation with the Los Angeles Police Department. You will travel step by step on the side of the law through an actual case, transcribed from official police files. From beginning to end, from crime to punishment, Dragnet is the story of your police force in action.
It was Tuesday, January 10th. It was foggy in Los Angeles. We were working the day watch out of forgery division. My partner's Frank Smith. The boss is Captain Welch. My name's Friday. I was on my way back to the office from a cup of coffee. It was 4:12 p.m. when I got to forgery. The squad room.
I told her to report it herself, told her it was her duty as a citizen. It is her duty, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. Hi, Joe.
Hi.
Mrs. Neskett, this is my partner, Sergeant Friday.
Mrs. Neskett?
Hello, Sergeant.
Seems Mrs. Neskett's mother got stuck with a bum check, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
She's a landlady out on Western.
Well, not a landlady exactly, only rents a couple of rooms. More for company than anything. Dad left her plenty to get by on.
Yes, ma'am.
We'd help her out if it was necessary. Dick and me. Dick's my husband. We'd help her out.
Mm-hmm.
So far, she's managed pretty well by herself, but if she pulls any more fool stunts like this, phony as a $3 bill, see right there? No such account. Big as life, stamped all over it.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't understand her. I just don't understand her at all.
Well, anybody can take a bad check, Mrs. Neskett, no matter how careful they are. Even with good identification, you can be fooled.
Well, when they do, they report it, don't they?
Well, yes, ma'am, usually.
Look at the date. Way last December, over a month ago.
Yeah?
Over a month ago, and she hasn't done a thing about it. Didn't intend to either. Didn't even want me to know. Good thing I started early this year.
Early, ma'am?
On her income tax. That's how I found out about the check.
Oh.
I used to work in a tax office, so I always make out Mother's return. If I didn't do it, I don't know who could. Doesn't keep any records, just stubs and a few bills. Well, someday they'll audit her and she'll find out.
Why didn't your mother report this check herself, do you know?
You tell me. The man had an honest face. That's about all I can get out of her.
How'd she happen to take it?
It was supposed to be for his first month's rent.
Well, then she's not out any cash.
Well, sure she's out cash. $20, that's what she's out. He made the check for $70. A month's rent's only $50. It's not a lot of money, but $20 is $20.
Yes, ma'am.
And there's the principal, too.
Yeah.
He's an actor, something like that.
Ma'am?
The fellow who gave it to her. Mother says she remembered his name from the movies. That's how she happened to take the check. I don't see why she'd trust an actor any more than she would somebody else.
May I see that, please? Mm-hmm. Parker Ellington. Ever hear of him, Joe?
Allington?
Uh-huh.
Well, it does sound familiar. He was in pictures when I was a kid, I believe. As I remember, I never cared much for him, though, if it's the same guy.
What do you mean?
The parts he played. Heavies. We ran the name Parker Allington through R&I, and we turned up one package listing a drunk arrest in 1935. We called the Screen Actors Guild to see if they could help locate him. They said they'd check in. They asked us to call back in an hour. 4:30 p.m. We left the office and drove out to the Western Avenue address that Mrs. Nescott had given us. It was a 2-story Spanish stucco with a rooms for rent sign in the front window.
Somebody's coming.
Yes.
Mrs. Krim,
Yes.
we're police officers. This is Frank Smith. My name's Friday.
Police officers.
That's right, ma'am.
Anita.
Beg pardon?
Oh, my daughter Anita. She sent you.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I told her not to. She never does anything I tell her. She never has.
Be all right if we come in?
The living room's a mess.
Don't worry about it, ma'am.
Well, I was just putting away the ornaments from the tree. It was raining last week when I took them down, and I couldn't get them out to the garage.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I won't press charges.
Well, that's up to you.
Not against that poor man, I won't. You just can't force me to press charges.
No, ma'am.
Suppose you tell us about the check.
Well, there isn't much to tell.
Your daughter says this man Allington gave it to you for rent.
Here, let me get that box out of your way so you'll have someplace to sit.
I'll take care of it, ma'am. All right if I put it here?
Oh, yes, that'll be fine. Thanks.
The check was for rent, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
When'd you take it?
Last month sometime. It was a week or so before Christmas. The date's on it, isn't it?
December 9th?
Well, if that's what it says.
Had you ever seen Allington before? Ever met up with him?
Oh, not in person. I may have seen him in pictures. He'd been in a lot of pictures. He seemed familiar.
Well, now, ma'am, how'd he happen to come here to rent a room?
Yeah, well, he saw the sign in front in the window. He was living in a hotel downtown, and he was out here visiting some friends.
Did he mention the name of the hotel?
No, I don't think so.
Well, what about the people he was visiting?
Well, what about him?
Well, did he tell you who they were?
He may have. But, well, I couldn't tell for sure. Well, not now, anyway.
But you said he saw the sign.
In the window.
Yes, ma'am.
So he came in and he asked about the room and if it was still for rent, and I showed it to him. Upstairs in the front, it's a real nice view.
He agreed to take it, did he?
Oh, straight off. Straight off. Said he used to live in a house something like this when he first came to California years ago when his wife was alive. It sort of reminded him of better times when, well, that's how he put it.
And he gave you this check for the first month's rent?
Yes. I suppose Anita told you that already. He made it out for $20 extra.
Why was that?
Well, he needed some cash money to hire a cab and move his things out here.
And you gave him the cash.
Yeah, $20. I just couldn't turn him down.
Why not?
Well, he just seemed so honest, that's all. You know, you can tell when a person's honest.
Yeah, sometimes.
Well, and he was so anxious to get the room. He wanted to be all moved in just in time for the holidays. Wanted to be with people, I suppose. I felt sorry for him.
Did you ask for any identification?
Well, there wasn't any reason to. I recognized his name. Besides, he was going to be living here, and if there was anything wrong with the check, he'd be here to make it right.
And you never heard from him again?
No. Now, that doesn't mean he was trying to cheat me.
Well, it looks that way, ma'am.
Now, listen, you folks are policemen. It's your job to suspect people of being crooked, and I don't blame you. It's your job.
Yes, ma'am.
$20.
Ma'am?
$20. Is that a reason to throw a man like Mr. Allington in jail?
Well, it might be more than $20.
Well, that is all I gave him. Don't you believe me?
Yes, ma'am. but this man has passed quite a few checks.
I told you before, I am not going to press charges.
Yes, ma'am. You told us.
Well, you don't understand. He didn't mean any harm.
Are you sure about that, Mrs. Crimp?
I am pretty good judge of human nature. I ought to be by now.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, listen, he's had lots of troubles, that Mr. Allington. Yeah, lots of troubles. An actor like him probably pulled down a fancy salary, never had any worries, and now it's all gone. All his money, his wife, everything. If he'd never been rich, it wouldn't have been so hard. I mean, you don't miss something that you've never had.
Yeah.
And if you're finished with me, I would like to get back to my housework.
Mind if I use your phone?
It's in the hall. I'll show you.
That's all right. I'll find it. Thank you.
You know, I didn't mean any offense, Mrs. Crimp.
Oh, no, that's all right. I know it's just your job. You know, there's some cookies there while you're waiting.
Oh, I'd like to, but no thanks.
Oh, come on, they're homemade.
Well, they look very good, but I'm sort of watching my diet right after the holidays and all.
Oh, come on, just have one.
Miss Beckford? Yeah, I'll wait, if you don't mind. Thank you. Hello, Miss Breckhart. This is Sergeant Friday. I spoke to you a little while ago about Parker Allington. Yeah, that's right. You asked me to call back? Uh-huh. When was that? Oh, I see. Yes, it certainly does. You bet. Thank you very much. Right. Goodbye.
No, I remember this as a kid. My mom used to make them for Christmas.
Oh, well, maybe you'd like to take a few home with you. I've got plenty extra.
Well, thanks anyway, but they wouldn't let me inside the front door if I showed up with an armload of cookies.
Oh, come on.
Are you ready, Joe?
Yeah. Well, we'd like you to come with us, Mrs. Crimp.
But what on earth for?
I want to see if you can identify the man who gave you the check.
You mean you've already arrested him?
No, ma'am.
I don't understand.
Well, we want to show you some mugshots, some photographs.
Oh, you want me to pick out Mr. Allington's picture?
If you can.
Oh, now that's silly. You don't need me for that. The studios must have pictures of him. I mean, the newspapers. Why, that's downright silly.
It wasn't Allington, ma'am.
What?
The fellow who passed that check.
What'd you find out?
Allington died 3 years ago. Miss Breckhart of the Screen Actors Guild had checked with the Motion Picture Relief Home, and they reported that Allington had lived there from 1949 until a heart attack caused his death several years earlier. We managed to convince Mrs. Crimp that she'd been taken by a professional swindler. Down at City Hall, we showed her mugshots of known bad check artists.
No, that's not him.
Well, how about this one?
I don't think so. No, I'm pretty sure not. No, that's not him either. He was older.
Well, the picture might be out of date.
Well, even so.
Well, that's it.
Well, Mrs. Crimp? Could you describe him for us?
Oh, yes. Well, he was medium-sized, a little taller than you, maybe.
Uh-huh.
How old would you say he was?
Oh, he was about in his 60s.
Gray hair?
Yeah, that's right.
Any marks or scars?
No, not that I noticed.
How about his eyes?
Beg pardon?
What color were his eyes?
Well, I couldn't say. He was only there for a few minutes.
Yes, ma'am, we understand.
Well, he just seemed like an average man for his age. A gentleman. He was nice looking, sort of distinguished.
Was there anything else about him?
No, except his expression.
Well, what do you mean?
Well, it was kind of sad, unhappy, like he'd been through a lot. But I guess that won't help you much, though.
It might.
So is that all?
Yes, ma'am. We'll take you home now.
Officer,
Yes, ma'am.
would you mind doing me a favor? I'd appreciate it.
What is it, Mrs. Crimp?
Don't tell my daughter about all this. I mean, that it wasn't Mr. Allington, that I let somebody trick me. She'd say it proves that I'm not able to take care of myself. I mean, I'd never hear the end of it. She treats me like a child as it is. You don't have to tell her, do you?
No, ma'am.
I'd sure appreciate it. It's not like she doesn't have my best interest at heart, but nobody likes to be criticized all the time, especially by their own flesh and blood. You got any children, Sergeant?
No, ma'am.
Well, then, You don't understand how I feel.
Yes, ma'am. Maybe I do.
No, you couldn't.
We drove Mrs. Krim to her home, and then we checked out for the night. By the end of the week, 2 more landladies in the Western Avenue area had been reported receiving bad checks from a man who claimed to be Parker Allington. Their stories tallied almost word for word with what Mrs. Krimp had told us. January 13th, 4:45 p.m., Frank and I checked back into the office after an interview with one of the victims.
You'd think that guy would wise up. Can't go on using a dead actor's name forever. Somebody's going to catch on.
Well, they haven't so far.
Well, sooner or later.
I thought you were on a diet.
Huh? Well, I got to keep up my strength.
Yeah? I thought you were on a diet, though.
Well, yeah, but, a person needs a certain amount of sugar.
Mm-hmm.
It's not high in calories. Read an article the other day. Teaspoonful of sugar, it's only 35 calories, chump.
Have you lost any weight yet?
Well, I'm holding my own.
You haven't lost any, though.
Well, I don't want to get thin, Joe. I'm just sort of watching it, that's all.
Mm-hmm. Forgery Friday. Yes, ma'am. This is the right extension. Could you speak up a little, please? I can't hear you. Just a minute. All right, go ahead, please. It's 2238. Yes, ma'am. I have it. Yes, ma'am. Right away. Well, it looks like you had it figured.
How come?
Somebody did catch on. Woman over near Los Feliz Boulevard.
Yeah?
Fellow's trying to give her a phony check.
Trying?
Yeah, he's still there.
Put a smile in your smoking.
Next time you buy cigarettes, stop and remember this.
Start with the top tobacco, grade A1. Let it ripen in the golden sun. Pick it gently, age it nice and slow. Gentle curing lets that rich taste grow.
Take it to the factory at one time. 95 miracles are accurate. Chesterfield.
Some French top tobacco's gonna mean that you're smoking smoother and you're smoking clean.
The very best tobacco in the USA gives you big, clean flavor in a big, big way.
The big, clean taste of top tobacco. Air Soft by Top Porosity Paper. Every satisfying puff. Air Soft. So start those wheels a-turning and make a lot. Then put them in a package and there you've got
Chesterfield.
Put a smile in your smoking.
Frank and I drove out to a side street just south of Los Feliz Boulevard. It took us 20 minutes to get to the house. When we pulled up in front of the place, a lady was standing on the porch. She spotted our car and walked down the steps.
Are you the policeman?
Yes, ma'am. My name's Friday. This is Frank Smith.
Well, hello, how are ya?
How do you do, ma'am?
You certainly didn't hurry.
Well, traffic's kind of heavy this time of day.
Why didn't you use your siren?
We didn't want to scare him off.
Well, it's too late for that. You left about 10-15 minutes ago. Oh, I'm Daisy Wilkers. I suppose you need that name for your records?
Yes, Mrs. Wilkers.
Not Mrs.
Oh.
You see where she went, where he went.
Took a bus on the corner, probably in Hollywood by now.
Why'd he leave in such a rush, you know?
Got suspicious. Might have heard my phone call. I had to talk so loud to make you understand. I tried to keep him here as long as I could. I did my best. You couldn't ask any more than that.
No, ma'am, but thanks.
Well, you might as well come inside. I suppose you want a full report? That is regular procedure, isn't it?
Are you familiar with police procedure, are you?
Watch it on television. Go to the movies. They got it all down pat.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess they didn't used to be so accurate, but nowadays, documentary.
Sure.
Well,
Ma'am?
what are you waiting for? Let's get started.
Well, suppose you just tell us what happened.
Where's your notebook? Your notebook. You're going to take this down, aren't you? They always do.
We'll try and remember it.
Pretty sure of yourselves, aren't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, he came to my door. Must have been about an hour or so ago. At least an hour.
Yes, ma'am.
Asked if I had a room for rent. Now, I told him that's what the sign said, and he just laughed, as if I'd been making a joke. Didn't know I was serious.
Did you show him the room?
Well, I tried to. He hardly glanced at it, and he said it was exactly what he'd been looking for. That's when I began wondering about him.
What else did he say?
He said he used to live in a house just like this when he was a little boy back east and that it reminded him of home. Now, I figured he was softening me up to lower the rent, but two can play that game.
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. What did you do?
Well, I upped to $10. Room's not worth over $45. I asked for $55.
Mm-hmm.
That way I'd be able to come down when he started playing on my sympathies. But wouldn't be any out of any money either.
Yeah.
Didn't bat an eye. Told him it was $55. He said he'd take it. Just like that. I knew something was wrong.
Well, what happened then?
Well, we came downstairs in the living room, right here.
Well, go ahead, please.
Well, I said I wanted first month rent in advance. A lot of them try to pay the rent by the week, but by the time you turn around, they're behind, and it just takes forever to get rid of them once they've moved in. I always insist on a full month.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, he didn't bat an eye at that either.
No.
Brought out a checkbook.
Did he ask you if you could make it out for a little extra?
How did you know?
Well, he's been around before.
25 extra. That's what he wanted. If he's been around so long, how come you haven't picked him up?
Well, we're trying, ma'am.
Few minutes earlier, we would have solved the whole case.
Well, we're just as anxious to solve it as you are, Miss Wilkers.
Did he say why he needed the extra cash, ma'am?
Something about cab fare to get his things out here.
That's an awful lot of cab fare.
That's my own words, right to his face. Exactly what I said. He said he had to clear up a hotel bill, too. Claimed they wouldn't take a check if he was moving.
And that's when you called us?
Of course not. I didn't call you until I was sure the check was no good. Not that I would have cashed it, but there's no point running to the police until you got your facts to back it up.
Mm-hmm. What made you so sure it was a phony?
It was the way he signed it.
What do you mean?
Yeah, what do you mean?
Parker Allington.
You knew it wasn't Allington?
Now, how could he be? Allington's dead. Didn't you know he was dead?
Yes, ma'am, we knew it.
Well, then.
Miss Wilkers, are you connected with show business?
I follow it, that's all. I don't spend all my time reading movie magazines or anything like that, but I do keep up with what's going on in the field. Did you know Allington was on television last night?
What's that?
The Late Show. The picture must have been at least 20 years old. He played the villain. Did a good job, considering it was 20 years ago. Gives you a funny feeling, though, watching someone who isn't here anymore.
Yes, ma'am. Picture, well, I'll tell you, as soon as you saw the name Allington on the check, you had to realize the guy was a phony and called us. That's right?
Well, approximately.
Approximately.
Well, I told him I didn't know I had the cash in the house. I said I had to go upstairs to make sure. Got an extension phone up there.
I see.
Then I telephoned you.
Well, what did you do next?
Came back downstairs.
Yes?
Told him I didn't have the money. He started acting funny. Said it didn't matter. Said he'd cash the check someplace else. Real funny, like he was on to me. So I stalled the best I could, but he took off. Caught the bus right there on the corner. Didn't have to wait more than a minute or so for it. Sure is strange. Whenever I want a bus, I have to stand out there half an hour.
One more thing, Ms. Wilkers.
Well?
We've got a description, but it's rather vague.
Description?
Yes, of this guy who's been passing himself off as Allington.
Oh.
All of you know is that he's medium-sized, gray hair, fairly well-dressed.
Well, that's about it.
It's not very specific.
Could you add anything?
You mean you don't know who he is?
That's right.
Wilbur French.
Who's that?
Used to play bit parts in the pictures.
Yeah?
Recognized him the minute he came through the door.
Ms. Wilkers insisted her identification of the check forger was correct. We drove back to the office, checked the name Wilbur French through R&I. We had nothing on him. I telephoned Miss Breckhart at the SAG. She reported that French was a member in bad standing, 2 years delinquent in its dues. She had no address listed for him, but she was able to tell us that the last company he'd worked for was a small TV outfit on Santa Monica Boulevard. She also told us that his files showed that he was last represented by a Paul Pilcher, an agent with offices on Sunset. January 14th, 9:35 a.m. I dropped Frank off at the Santa Monica TV company and I drove on out to interview Pilcher.
Yes, sir. What can I do for you?
I'd like to see Mr. Pilcher.
You a client?
Police officer. My name's Friday.
Oh,
Mr. Pilcher in?
not yet.
You expecting him?
Well, I don't know when exactly. Sometimes he plays tennis on Saturday mornings before he comes to the office.
I see.
But he'll be in. He's closing a deal with TRC.
Oh,
That's a studio. He's a new company, just getting started.
I see.
Would you like to look at the trades while you're waiting? Yesterday's. They don't come out on Saturday.
Oh, thank you very much.
Mr. Pilcher in some kind of trouble?
Not as far as I know, no.
Well, that's a relief.
Ma'am?
Just between you and me, this office has been skating on kind of thin ice lately. Financially speaking, that is.
Oh,
Owes me 2 weeks' pay. 2 weeks today. If anything happens to Pilcher, I'd never get it.
uh-huh.
He's an easy man to work for, but a girl likes to get paid.
Sure.
Mr. Pilcher's office? I'm sorry. He hasn't come in yet. Any minute. Would you like me to have him call you? I see. Well, if you try again in about 15 minutes, he ought to be here. Bye. I guess there wasn't much news yesterday.
No, ma'am.
Friday's a bad day. All that stuff about what pictures are shooting, hardly anything else.
Uh-huh.
I hope you weren't insulted
What?
when I asked if you were a client.
No, ma'am.
Some people wouldn't like the idea of being taken for an actor.
Some people wouldn't like the idea of being taken for a cop.
I never thought of that.
You got a list of your boss's clients?
Sure,
Names and addresses?
of course.
Maybe you can help me then. Wilbur French?
French?
I'd like his address.
Never heard of him.
Uh,
Wait a minute, I'll make sure. He's not down.
I see.
If he was a client, I'd know the name. He'd have called in. They all do.
Uh-huh.
I've only been here a couple of months, but he'd have called in. Actor?
Yeah.
He'd have called.
Maybe Mr. Pilcher can help me.
I doubt it.
The Screen Actors Guild says your boss used to handle them.
They change agents real fast. 91 days.
What?
If you don't get them so much work in 91 days, they can get a new agent. It's in the contract.
Oh.
Morning, Mr. Pilcher.
Oh, good morning.
This gentleman's waiting to see you.
Oh?
And Mr. Brogman's office called. They'll call back. Mr. Brogman's getting shaved.
Oh, yeah, right.
I'm a police officer. My name's Friday.
Police?
That's right.
What can I do for you?
I'd like to talk to you for a minute.
Oh, all right. Come on inside. Yeah. Sit down.
Thank you.
Yeah, want a cigarette?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, here's a lighter.
Never mind. I have a match here.
Oh, okay. Well,
You handle an actor named Wilbur French, Mr. Pilcher?
French.
That's right.
No, I don't handle him.
You used to be his agent, didn't you?
Yeah, a long time ago. A couple of years ago, maybe. Don't
Oh.
handle him anymore, though.
Uh-huh.
What's he done?
Could you tell me where I could find him?
I wouldn't have any idea, really. I don't think he's had much work lately. At least I haven't heard about him working.
What was his last address?
Oh, you've come to the wrong man.
Well, the last address that you have him for.
I don't keep addresses of actors after they leave me.
Well, why did he leave you?
Oh, the usual reason. No work. Yeah, pretty bad as an actor. Oh, excuse me. Yes? Yeah, put him on. Hello, George. Hey, how are you? Glad to hear it. And Mabel? Oh, that's a shame. Seems to be a lot of that going around this time of year. Yeah. Well, what about Harvey? You make up your mind? Uh-huh. Oh, I sure don't agree with you there, George. He didn't look too old in the test. Oh, so he's been in the business a few years. You can't hold that against him. Oh, what do you mean, a new face? You'll bring out somebody from New York who's been on television 100 times. There won't be anything new about his face. Look, I'm not trying to tell you your business. I'm just trying to set a good actor in the right part. I'll be through soon, Mr. Friday.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's more like it, George. Now, how many weeks' work? No, George, I've read that script. Davis can't shoot that many scenes in 2 weeks. $1,200 a week, 4-week guarantee. Fletcher paid him $1,200 last fall. Go ahead and check. Look, George, if I was a Beverly Hills agent, you know what Harvey would cost you? Well, I'm not going to argue with you about it. Call Fletcher. He'll tell you what he paid Harvey. I'll be here till noon if you want to make a deal. Okay, bye. Sorry to be so long.
Sure. Any suggestions on how I might get in touch with Mr. French?
Screen Actors Guild?
Well, they sent me here.
Oh, what's he done?
We'd rather talk to him.
Well, last time I saw him, he touched me for $10.
Where was that?
I bumped into him on the street. Is it serious?
Just a routine investigation. Thanks very much, Mr. Pilcher.
Wait a minute.
Yes, sir?
I suppose I could turn him up. Be a dirty trick, though.
I don't know why.
Well, maybe it's my fault that he's in trouble. He didn't get enough work. Now I hand him over to you. Kind of makes me a heel, doesn't it?
Well, you might be doing him a favor.
Well, he won't think so.
You said you didn't know where he lives.
Well, I don't.
Well, how will you find out?
Well, just spread the word around that I got a job for him. Oh, he'll hear about it.
I see.
And he'll turn up.
All right, sir.
I'll leave your number. When I hear from French, I'll get in touch with you.
Thank you.
I still feel like a heel.
Well, you shouldn't. You called a turn on him. He's a bad actor. I left Pilcher's office and picked up Frank. The TV company had given him a still photo from the last production in which French had appeared. 2 of the check victims readily identified the man in the picture. The third victim was also almost certain it was the same person who'd posed as Allington, but she refused to say positively. January 16th, 3:32 p.m., Paul Pilcher telephoned the office. He told us French was living at a hotel in Hollywood on Selma Avenue. When we got there, the desk clerk said French was in his room, 17B.
Okay, this is it.
Yeah.
Who is it?
I'd like to talk to you, French.
Just a minute. Yeah?
We're police officers.
I'd like to ask you some questions.
Downtown.
What is this, a gag?
No, it's no gag.
Anybody can get hold of a badge. Who sent you? Mike? Sammy?
Come on, let's go, French.
Knock it off. I've been in too many pictures. I can tell actors from cops.
You ever hear of Parker Allington?
Yeah, I've heard of him. Worked with him in pictures. Used to be friends.
I give you the right to sign his name.
On bad checks?
Now look, boys, I know why they sent you. I told Mike I got a call this morning about a job. It'd be just like him to pick a time like this. Some practical joker, isn't he?
Nah, it won't work, French.
What?
Come on, you know who we are and why we're here. Let's go.
It's one of Mike's gags.
Well, 3 landladies say different.
Oh.
Want to get your coat?
It was only a few bucks.
It was enough.
How'd you tumble?
One of the landladies knew Allington was dead.
I never figured he was that famous.
Well, she knew you, too.
Me?
That's right.
Could have known I was living here. Who told you?
Come on, let's go.
Pilcher. That's why he wanted to get in touch with me. I should have figured it wasn't about a job. Pilcher, wasn't it?
Come on.
Some agent. Couldn't land a job if your life depended on it. 5 years. Over 5 years I was signed with him. Never had a decent booking. Nothing that lasted. A couple of days here and there. Nothing that lasted.
Well, don't you worry about it.
Huh?
This one will.
The story you have just heard is true. The names were changed to protect the innocent.
On February 7th, trial was held in Department 98, Superior Court of the State of California, in and for the County of Los Angeles. In a moment, the results of that trial.
And now, here's our star, Mr. Jack Webb.
Thank you, George Fenneman. Friends, no cigarette satisfies like Chesterfield. I hope you'll remember that next time you're at your favorite tobacco dealers. Buy Chesterfield and put that smile in your smoking. You'll like him as much as I do.
Wilbur Carl Flicker, also known as Wilbur French, was found guilty on 3 felony warrants charging forgery. He was sentenced to the state prison as prescribed by Section 470 of the California Penal Code for a period of 1 to 14 years. You have just heard Dragnet, a series of authentic cases from the official files. Today's episode starred Sam Van Zandt as Sergeant Joe Friday and Joe Starkey as Officer Frank Smith. Also appearing in today's cast were Steve Cushman, Danielle Jennings, Elisa Clancy, Miranda Wilson, Judy Leff, Michael Bennett, and Peter Finch. Hal Gibney speaking. Today's program was produced and Foley by Steve Cushman. Directed by Peter Finch. Sound design and live mix by Dan Healy. Effects playback, Rick Rubin. Music provided by members of Don Neeley's Royal Society Jazz Orchestra. And me, I'm Paul Lobster Wells. Thank you.
This has been a CHRS Radio Dog production.
All right. Thank you.